So Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was directed by Jeff Fowler, who previously directed the first two Sonic the Hedgehog movies, and it once again features Ben Schwartz, James Marsden, Jim Carrey, Colleen O'Shaughnessy, Idris Elba, Tika Sumpter, as well as some new faces, including some new voices, including Keanu Reeves as Shadow. In this movie taking place after the events of the first two Sonic the Hedgehog movies, as well as Knuckles, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles find a new threat in Shadow, which is basically the anti-Sonic in a way, and basically they have to take him on, plus Dr. Robotnik meets his grandfather, also played by Jim Carrey, and they have a new scheme brewing and such, and we have a new Sonic the Hedgehog movie. So this is a movie that I was definitely intrigued by and kind of interested in. I think the first two Sonic movies are entertaining. They're not, I wouldn't call them like, high art by any means, but I recognize them for what they are. They're fun movies overall. I don't know if I like Sonic the Hedgehog 2 as much upon a rewatch. I did think that movie was a bit too long and a bit too dramatic for what it was trying to do, but I did think it was fine overall, about as good as the first movie. So I was curious to see with the team coming back for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, what was going to happen? Was it going to be more or less Sonic the Hedgehog 1 where it's just kind of fun, or is it going to be like Sonic the Hedgehog 2 where it takes itself a little too seriously? I think Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is surprisingly a good marriage of the two of them because it is still as fun as the first movie, but definitely is a little bit more serious than the other two movies. And I do think when it's serious, it does work. When it's fun, it does work. So, what do I like about this movie? First off, I do think the acting, as well as the voice acting, is very good. Jim Carrey trying to play these two roles in this movie, I thought he did a decent job. I thought he was pretty fun and funny, kind of bounced off himself throughout the entire movie. I thought he did a good job. Along the voice actors, Ben Schwartz is surprisingly very well cast in Sonic. I thought he's still really good in the role. Everyone else, Idris Elba, Colleen O'Shaughnessy, and Keanu Reeves, surprisingly, I thought he did a really good job as Shadow. He's not in the movie as much as I thought he would, but when he's on screen and he's actually talking and such, it's like, yeah, I definitely believe him as Shadow. I thought he did a really good job. Lee Majab, who is Robotnik's assistant, I thought this was the best he's been in any of these movies. I actually thought there was actually an arc with his character in this movie, and it was surprisingly well done. And again, going back to that mix of comedy and drama, I thought this was probably the most effective of the three, where I feel like Sonic the Hedgehog 1 was just straight comedy. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was a little bit more dramatic than the first movie, and I was kind of surprised by the twist it took. But this one definitely has a lot more drama than I expected, but also it was surprisingly effective. Like, there's a lot of stuff with Sonic in this movie and who his character grows in this movie. It's actually surprisingly effective. There was a point in the movie where I'm like, am I caring? Am I caring as much as am I caring more than I expected to with this movie? I'm surprised, and I actually do like that. I do think it's not like it's like it cops out by like being a comedy and such. It's like, no, when it's actually trying to be funny, it's actually really funny. There were several lines in this movie that I'm thinking about afterwards, including one around a bonfire by Idris Elba that was really funny. That was really, I won't say the line because it just caught me off guard. It was pretty funny. And the drama itself, very effective. Again, I won't go into details, but if you're a Sonic fan, you kind of know what you're going into. There are also some really fun action sequences in this movie. Like the first time that Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles interact with Shadow, it's pretty fun. There are definitely some fun sequences throughout the entire movie. Some of the best sequences of this whole franchise, I would say. And also, they don't really focus on the human characters so much. Like, Wade, played by Adam Pally, is just a cameo in this movie, thank God. Also, there are a couple other characters where I feel like they don't really do too much with them. The most human characters you get in this movie are Robotnik and his grandfather. So, I do think, again, it's mostly about Sonic, and I do think it's mostly effective that way. But that just because I like the fact that they don't have the human characters as much, there are a couple human characters where I'm like, you could have used them a little bit more. Like James Marsden. I'm still kind of upset with this movie because they don't use James Marsden as much as they did in the first movie, or even the second movie. I think he's in this movie less than the first two movies, and that's kind of upsetting because there's some twists in the movie and such, which I won't spoil. It's not as effective because I feel like they aren't really giving him enough time. I feel like it was kind of annoying. I still miss that relationship between Sonic and the Donut Lord, if you will. I feel like they should have used him a little bit more in this movie. Meanwhile, there are a couple other human characters in this movie, some new human characters that I felt like, well, that was just kind of a waste of time. Like, why were you in this movie even? Like, there's a character played by Kristen Ritter. It's like, okay, here's her deal and such, and it's like she's kind of dropped after the end of the second act. I'm like, that's kind of weird. Like, why would you have this character in this movie if you're not really going to do anything with them? I kind of forgot she was in the movie for a while. Meanwhile, even though I would say the comedy and the drama is effective, I will say there are some jokes that just do not work. I would say the ratio is better. Like it hits like at least 2 out of 3 times, or even 3 out of 4 times. I'm still kind of debating about that, but I do think some jokes just fall flat or they kind of go on way too long. Like a lot of people really enjoyed this one sequence where Jim Carrey, as both characters, is dancing through lasers and such, and I'm just watching and going, this is getting old really fast. Also, it's just kind of annoying. My mind just goes this way. It's like, okay, so they're laser proof suits, and yet at the same time, they're not wearing anything on their heads. So are the lasers not hitting their heads? I know I shouldn't be asking for logic in a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, but sometimes you just gotta think. But overall, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, I surprisingly enjoyed this movie a little bit more than the first two movies, where I feel like the first movie was fun. This is kind of like what the second movie was trying to do, but did it a little bit more effectively. Like, the comedy was better and the drama was better than the second movie. I do think the voice acting, as well as the regular, actual actors acting, was better in this movie. There are some fun sequences. The human characters aren't used as much, although I wish some characters were a little bit more in this movie, and also I wish some characters were given more backstory. But again, not every joke can work. If you're a Sonic the Hedgehog fan, definitely see this movie. But if you're not, I would still kind of recommend this in some way, but also maybe you should watch the first two movies to kind of know what you're getting into. So I'll give Sonic the Hedgehog 3, I'll be a little nice. I'll give it 3 out of 4 stars, see it. So, how would you rank the Sonic the Hedgehog movies? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat, and stay safe.